All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of James Bond Bitcoin Live 0079 hashtag Forex. And tonight is the long version of the show. And so, what I have in the notes section is let's see here. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about a statement on Bitcoin Gold by Bittrex. There's a link in the notes section for that. We're also going to talk about 7 Japanese Bitcoin exchange announced Bitcoin Gold hard fork plans. I also have a link for 2 Korean exchanges also who has plans for Bitcoin Gold. I'll put that in the notes sections. Also in the notes section is It's Happening. Bitcoin Cash, not Bitcoin Gold, but Bitcoin Cash is set to hard fork on November 13th. I'll put that, we'll talk about that. And then one more thing is the Coinomi support has a link for how to split your Bitcoin Gold. And I'll go over that. I'll also put that in the notes section. I didn't have time today. And then also I got a message from Carlos. And he sent out a video. It was yesterday. He put in the comments, but Venezuela apparently is going to be using Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Let me see what he wrote here. It's all, the video is in Spanish, so I can't really confirm or deny it. I was hoping to have Carlos on the show, but he didn't reply. But apparently, the Venezuelan government officially is telling its citizens to move onto Bitcoin, just like they themselves are using it to bypass UN sanctions, and that both financial systems will run parallel at the beginning starting Monday. So I put that in the notes section. I told him I would. Hopefully he'll be in the chat tonight. So there you go. So tonight with me is Brian. Brian, please say hello, introduce yourself.
Howdy, everybody. Brian McLaughlin. Glad to be back on James on Bitcoin Live. Thank you for having me on, James.
Excellent, and welcome back, Brian. I hope you enjoyed your vacation. And next is Hiroja, Shibe, Space Odyssey Network. Introduce yourself. Say hello.
Hello, everyone. Again, thank you for allowing me to join on here, James and Brian. I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion we're going to have tonight because I have so many thoughts. So many thoughts.
All right, that's great. And the notes section is also information on Brian and how to contact him. And I also have a link to Hiroja's Space Odyssey Network, her channel, and so you can just go ahead and subscribe to her. Also in the notes section, I have some few other things because we're on the subject of forks, and you might want to have fun with this. Cool magic trick revealed. Learn fork bending for free. So you can learn how to bend a fork. Another one is how to perform the fork bend trick. So a lot of forking going on. The next one is amazing fork bending illusion. You should watch some of these if you're interested in hard forks. And of course, I have the new time lock address in the notes section. I'll be using the unlocking it as soon as it becomes the right time. And I'll send out my usual donations and reveal the private key. So anybody who's watching or anybody after the show can try to sweep the keys. And of course, I have the link to this meme here. I think what you're watching right now. Let's put that on full screen. There we go. So full screen. What do I have? I have BT1, which is the current Bitcoin chain. After that, I have BCH, which was Bitcoin Cash fork. and then the BT2, which is the SegWit 2X, and then the BTG, which is the Bitcoin Gold. So we got like 4 forks coming up here, and possibly more. Now I know BT1 is not really a fork, but we could talk about how the current chain, if SegWit 2X happens, where it might have to fork, and there might be some possibilities of it forking because they may have to change proof of work or even change difficulty. And of course, my hashtag yes2x. And also in the notes section, I have pot of gold, a link to that, and the pot of gold address for anybody who wants to donate. So, all right. So, guys, what do you think about all these forking possibilities that is coming up? What are your thoughts and about all this?
Okay, can we just officially declare Bitcoin Gold like a scam? Because they've already forked. They have pre-mined. They had to disclose it because someone like went through and figured it out. And so yeah, they confessed. I mean, it's kind of like when you catch a kid, with their hand in the cookie jar. They're gonna admit to it, cop to it right there because they've been seen. But I mean, it was an interesting concept. People have been talking about forever, ever since ASICs came onto the scene, about mining and decentralization, about the possibility of either going to back to GPU mining somehow. And there's been a lot of coins that were created after ASICs that are ASIC resistance, but ASICs have been in the system for far too long that I'm not certain you can kind of go back. And I know that's something that's a possibility with this whole SegWit 2X, and I know Luke Jr. is a bit of a troll sometimes, and you can't tell if he's being serious or he's being real about either changing to proof of stake or changing the algorithm to be back to GPU mining. But this is a scam. I mean, they're taking people's money in essence, and I just feel very weird and ooey about it because it came out of nowhere. No one really knows the developers. There's not that much disclosure. There's not that much knowledge. There's not much any information, but it's already happened. So I don't know.
How about you, Brian? Any thoughts on all these forks coming up here, or even Bitcoin Gold being a scam? Should we even label it a scam because they pre-mined and they've apparently already forked?
Well, if we do that, then there are several other coins that have to be labeled as scam. Wasn't Bitcoin pre-mined?
No, actually, it was not.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, there you go. Bitcoin's billionth reason why it kicks everybody else's ass. I don't know if it's a scam or not. I mean, there are lots of pre-mined coins out there. I don't know if it makes it a scam per se. It's shoddy business, but I don't know if it's a scam. I think that if people wanted an awesome fork and to have a stake with protection, that they've missed out on their opportunity. That was back in August with the original Bitcoin Cash fork. Now, the upcoming forks, they all have inherent dangers in them. No replay protection. So maybe we should start thinking about SegWit 2X being a scam.
Yeah, I guess we could talk a little bit about that. Most of the things I'm going to be talking about is probably Bitcoin Gold, because I think that's kind of a preemptive. Well, I wouldn't say preemptive strike, but that should give us a lot of information about how SegWit 2X is going to fork and all the things that's going to happen.
I think they're two separate things because SegWit 2X, the concept of SegWit and the 2X part have been discussed and talked about for a very long time in the community. And as much as people may not have liked how SegWit got activated in the backdoor agreement or open/backdoor agreement that occurred, it's transparent enough where people have enough information and everyone's been talking on both ends, if you will, of the spectrum of this issue to know what's actually going on. And there's been enough disclosures. You kind of know who is developing, whether you agree about their skill level or their development when it comes to SegWit 2x. There's companies that are saying they're not going to support. There's companies disclosing they are supporting. I mean, it's very, very clear lines. And I know there's, as the date gets closer, there's people that are breaking away from it. I don't think that in essence it's a scam. I think what it is it's the nature of it, you can say, is breaking consensus because it doesn't have consensus. Even SegWit, to some extent, the nature, the way it got activated didn't really have consensus. If you really want to apply the true value word of consensus, it seemed like people were agreeing to it because it needed to be done, and they thought they were going to get something out of it, whether it be the 2 megabyte or actually control the dead team, or however you want to feel about the conspiracies out there. But this Bitcoin Gold thing, what to me, what makes it a scam is the fact that they didn't disclose that they were going to pre-mine beforehand, that they're not as transparent as other development teams or other development methods, and I don't trust the code. I don't trust who's doing this. I don't trust the fact that we have to actually deal with this just simply because it's a fork off of the Bitcoin core thing. So you have to deal with it, even if it's shitty code. I mean, there's no way around it. Everyone has to deal with it, and I just feel it feels just very scuzzy and very slimy versus SegWit 2x, where people just don't really like how it's going down, or why it's going down, or if it should go down. I think there's two different things going on here.
Well, SegWit 2x was built around the premise of a lie, the need to have bigger blocks because the transactions were so slow because it was full. The mempool was full, and so you couldn't get transactions through, but that was all fake. That was a scam.
The SegWit 2x part about being the need to increase the block size was fake. The real situation, what they wanted to do was try to replace the devs.
Basically, I don't know their true motivation, controlled by whatever mechanisms, but there was no need for increasing the block size. As far as Bitcoin Gold, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Hiroja. This is pretty damn shady. But one thing is, you don't necessarily have to deal with it. If you don't care what happens with your Bitcoin Gold, then you don't even have to pay attention to anything about it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Brian, you're true as an individual level, but as a person who has a company or a wallet or a product, because you have to, some wallets control people's private keys, so they're custodial wallets, right? So as a responsibility of a custodian, you have ownership, or I want to say ownership, but you have custodialship of a person's property, and so you have to deal with the split. Now, for wallets that don't have custodial ownership and they allow people to have their private keys, they don't really have to acknowledge Bitcoin Gold. They basically, you have control of your private keys. If you want Bitcoin Gold, you can go to a wallet that allows you to do it. We don't have to provide that service for you because we don't have ownership of your private keys. You do. And since we have so many exchanges where people still to this day, and they still haven't learned their lessons about keeping their coins on exchanges, there's a lot of different types of businesses that just simply have to deal with this just simply because of their custodialship. And that's where it gets very scuzzy and slimy for me personally.
Well, let me ask you, Hiroja, real quick. Like, what's your idea of consensus? Because I think there's a lot of people who have their ideas of what it is,
mm-hmm.
and right now it seems like consensus means right now what's happening, in my opinion, is the idea of how people come up with consensus is implementing their own software of what they think Bitcoin is and forking
mm-hmm.
off. And
consensus to me, from my understanding, from what I've read, and from even the technical aspects, is 100% agreement. we're all going down this path. We all know the set rules. We all agree if there is a new rule that's going to be implemented, it has to be 100%, or, you know, like 99.9%, like that little rounding error, if you will. And changing the rules, even with, was it Bitcoin Unlimited, Bitcoin Classic, the other Bitcoin, they were changing the rules, even the activation of the SegWit, to where it had to be, it wasn't really like, one version was like 70% of mining hashing power, another version was like 80%, and then I think we came down to like the 95% rule. And that's fine, you know, it's close enough, I guess you could say, to consensus, if you will. But people have the right, if they choose to pick up their ball and go somewhere else if they want to. I just wish they would do so in a much more responsible manner. And I'm not quite seeing that. With Bitcoin Cash, it was clear from the very beginning that this was going to happen, that there was going to be a fork. It was just really rapid because everything was happening in a rapid fashion. I think they did code things with, like, you know, replay protection and getting wallets and stuff like that. They were responsible enough. I think if the rumors are true that the whole plan for Bitcoin Cash to happen was going to happen, then they should have disclosed it months ahead, to where people would have been more prepared and maybe read into it more, and some more decisions could have been made. With SegWit 2x, the thing of it is I don't think people realize that SegWit was activated on the network, but it only had 30% backing. And the only way they got that over the hump hill, if you will, was this additional caveat, this carrot, if you will, this raising of the block size. And now that we're coming to the point where we're supposed to raise the block size, now all these different groups want to back up, or they didn't really agree to everything, and it seems very unseemly. It seems just kind of like the old business of the old economic system that we're trying to get away from, instead of this new economic system where everything's supposed to be more transparent, more clear, and we're supposed to have this kind of, we're all in this or it's not going to happen.
Okay, but you know what? Consensus is kind of has a different meaning, I guess, for different folks. How would that consensus mechanism? How do we all come to an agreement? Because so far it's been the core developers come out with the code, and then everybody can choose to upgrade or not choose to upgrade, and that's what's, you know, been the consensus mechanism that's been used. It's like core developers come out with code, they put it out there, and they either the nodes can upgrade, and you know the miners obviously run a node. People who,
but not all the rules
are merchants, run a node.
Not all the rules are going to be like that. Eventually, there is going to be a raise of the block size. There is going to be adding of certain features that require a hard fork. You can't, when you have a hard fork, when you have that type of implementation, you can't, you know, ignore the implementation. Like for some people, like myself, I don't have a SegWit address yet. I still have everything just on the one address, if you will. I haven't migrated my stuff to SegWit yet because I don't have to. I don't really need to. And then the fees, you know, a little bit of a bother or something like that, but I'm not moving my coins around at this point in time. That's something I can choose to do. If I want to implement, and there's different forms of the Bitcoin core, different, you know, node implementations I can download and implement to my specifications, but that's my choice to do whether I want the SegWit node or not. We're talking about where you have to have an actual decision being made. And that's what we're facing here is people are having to decide to make a decision to raise this block size or not. And there's many people that wanted to make that decision. There's people that say no. There's some people that are very hesitant. There's a lot of people that are apathetic. But a lot of people are also thinking in the sense that there's a lot of money on the line. Should we even be doing this now or at all? And I think that's where we're having this problem. And it might be, I forget what the technical term is, where there's like, you can only remember up to like 150 people in your, you know, in your head, or there's a reason why we only have like 10 numbers for a phone number, because that's an easy number for humans to remember, is 10 numbers. there might be like a human threshold to where consensus can be achieved, and we might have reached that threshold where we can't have consensus, and now we've gone past that threshold where we can never reach that consensus because we're too large of a group.
Okay, but that's maybe true. Maybe that's why we never reach consensus. But the
But we
way we
have reached
reach
consensus.
well, the way we reach consensus is, like I said, the developers put out the code or whatever their implementation is,
But they've all been
and
soft
then they
forks.
release it, and then the consensus mechanism is that everybody either upgrades or don't upgrade.
Yeah, but all the upgrades, except for very, very early on when we were very small, were choice upgrades. You can choose to upgrade or you can choose not to upgrade because they were all soft forks. We're now at a point to where if you don't upgrade, there's going to be a split. You have to make a
Right. And
decision.
that's what I'm saying. Like if that's consensus, or that's the way we'd come up with consensus, maybe that's
But
the reason why we're forking.
But consensus comes even before the actual release of the code. Consensus becomes into the BIP releases and the decision to develop the code itself and looking at the code and seeing, breaking it, figuring out if it works or not. Is this the time to be doing it? And so you have, miners, you have wallet developers, you have users, you have all members of this community that can make inputs and comments and talk to the code developers, or put their version of a code and submit it to for everyone to preview and go through the bid process and stuff like that. It starts there, and I think what has happened is we lost sight of that. Maybe we spent too long on this. Maybe we spent too long doing SegWit. Maybe we spent too long trying to get Lightning Network on, and now we've gotten to a point to where we cannot achieve consensus because there's so many different groups and interests in this at this point, and not everyone wants to do it properly. They want to do it their way.
Okay. Well, it's still the same way. You have to go to the core developers and have them create a code for them to put out for everyone to adopt. So the mechanism is still the same of how people come to consensus, and I think that's the reason why there's a lot of forking going on, because that model is very restrictive at this point in time, and I think that's why we already have one fork, and we
Is
may
it?
have other forks coming through, and depending on how they want to do their consensus, which may be better and may not be better, I don't know, because so far there's only been one blockchain, right? Well, before Bitcoin Cash, and the one way of coming up with consensus. Now, Bitcoin Cash is coming up with their own consensus. I think it's easier for them because they're a new fork, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe SegWit 2x may come up with a different way of consensus, because from what I could tell, it seems like the people who are trying to do the hard fork with the SegWit 2x, their idea of consensus is really different. It's getting input from all of the community and having the developers, make those changes.
Well,
And so the
but that
relationship seems to be a little different than what it is right now.
but that has
Now,
always been the case. You can go in even with core, and I have a lot of issues with core and BIP and the BIP process and things of that nature. But that always has been the process where people did make comments on core. They did make some kind of input. There were people doing wallets or doing something and saying, hey, we kind of need to do this, and submitting information and having those dialogues and Bitcoin talk and stuff like that. So that has always kind of been the process. What we're having is we're seeing is different economic interests, different power interests, different dynamics going on because we have grown much larger than previously, where people might have taken the time to listen to one another or kind of conceded certain points to get consensus. I think we're getting to a point where people are not willing to concede. And
right,
that's what we're facing here. And
right,
as
yeah. I think we're getting to that point because of the way it's the way we're coming up with a consensus, and so this may be very natural, where forks may be natural, where you take a group of people who obviously have a different view of what should be done, and let them fork off using Bitcoin implementation, whatever implementation they want to use. But there is the danger of not adding replay to it, which I have an issue with.
Well, if you're going to go with the whole concept of game theory, and this is where you get to the whole concept of what works in a classroom or works in like a petri dish doesn't really work in the real world, because with the whole concept of no replay, what the SegWit people are saying is that we're Bitcoin, right? While the legacy people or Bitcoin Core is saying no, we're Bitcoin. And so you're going to find out either somebody's going to blink, someone's going to put replay protection or whatever. And this is where I have significant issues over this whole no replay thing is, why aren't both chains doing replay protection? Wouldn't you want to make sure that your shit is working as well? Wouldn't you want to protect yourself as well as a defensive mechanism to protect yourself against types of forks or bad code? Wouldn't that be your responsibility as a due diligence on the end of core? Or
well, they may have to. They may have to, because if there's a hard fork
mm-hmm.
and they're struggling over, mining power or hashing
Mm-hmm.
power, and if it's true that the SegWit 2x miners have 90% or even 80% or even 70%, they can easily just go back and forth, causing like very long confirmation times for the original chain or BT1 chain, or the BT1, as I got my meme here, where even if people wanted the original chain with the core developers, that transacting in it would take such a long time because you got a lot of the hashing power all of a sudden disappearing, but the difficulty remaining. And the attack can be just going back and forth. The miners, I mean, even if money or the economic of Bitcoin and Bitcoin or BT1 or BT2, even if BT2, if we're looking at the futures,
mm-hmm.
if BT2 is even at a lower price and BT1 is at a higher price, you could just have the miners just go back and forth like you see with Bitcoin Cash. And the problem with Bitcoin Cash, as we're learning, is with their new algorithm of how they measure difficulty, when it's high, people leave. And
Mm-hmm.
then you're left with, like, I don't know how long it takes to readjust, but it readjusts pretty quickly. Where it takes a long time to mine blocks. And then when it drops, then people come back because it's easy to mine blocks and the rewards and the incentives are there. And then it just raises it back up. And so you got a little seesaw effect where it's really causing a lot of problems for Bitcoin Cash. So when I look at that and I look at, okay, go ahead.
See, what the problem is we've allowed or conceded to the point where we're having these huge mega mining pools, and it looks like there's some mining pools that actually really own other mining pools and control a significant amount of the hash power. Instead of developing wallets or whatever, maybe we should have pumped money or interest into ASIC chips to diversify the mining hashing power too. And I know it takes a lot of capital, but it would have been a better way when this first popped up to have as many different types of mining engines out there as possible, to where you would have some people that were a company, whether a small or big or mid-sized mining pool, that would not be flipping back and forth, but kind of staying put because they want to be the reliable miner. They want to be the miner that says, hey, I'm only mining BTC and you want to come with me. And work on reputation and things of that nature. But because we have these very few, it really is very few minor pools, and yes, there's a lot of smaller ones, but big few minor pools are able to manipulate and do this on the network. And it's left a significant vulnerability that we're currently seeing right now with this upcoming impending fork, and what we've already seen demonstrated on Bitcoin Cash. I don't know completely at this point in time, other than changing the algorithm or going to proof of stake, which I hope is not the case with Bitcoin, to combat that, other than pumping a lot of money to have as many making ASIC chips as cheap as GPUs. You know, a dime a dozen, if you will.
Yeah, but I don't know who's doing that. But let me go
Well,
on, and
I think
we'll
I know
go.
Nvidia and AMD are getting into that, and I've seen some stories about different companies pumping money for ASICs. But what is ASICs used other than Bitcoin mining?
Right.
Really?
That's all it's used for.
Yeah.
So that is an issue, and it'll be
Mm-hmm.
interesting what happens. And but until actually someone does it, or someone from this community actually starts a chip manufacturer, I don't relying on other companies or other people to do things on a wishful thinking. And right now it is wishful thinking.
It
We're
is.
wishfully thinking like AMD or Nvidia
Yeah.
or Intel is going to make these chips.
Well, I've seen people trying to start, or considering stopping, or starting, or building capital, or working to that direction. And yes, it's wishful thinking of looking for a third party. I'm just fascinated, maybe because people got too burnt by what was that company, Bitflyer or Bit something or Butterfly Labs or
Butterfly
whatever.
Labs. Yeah, Butterfly
Yes.
Lab,
Yeah.
Fast Hash, and
Yeah. There's
Cointera,
a
they all
Yeah, and there's also
corrupt.
this whole myth that you can't make money in Bitcoin mining, which is not true. You can't, but you know, it's just that you have to have a little bit more flexible thinking, and understand that there's going to be some short-term gains and there's going to be long-term gains, and you have to decide what aspect you're going to be in. Sometimes it's not okay to always live in the present and get that short-term stuff, because you might be eating away whatever future gains you could possibly have.
Right. Well, let me just cut in here for a little bit and just remind everyone we're still doing the Bitcoin pot of gold here. The donation address is in the link, and then of course the QR code is here as well. So let's go on here and we'll get the discussion going. And so I think the first article that we can talk about, and it's Bitcoin Gold here. Takes a long time to download here. Okay, where are we? Okay, so this is coming from, I don't know, Bitcoin.com. And I think this is probably news, or if it's just paid advertisement. But 7 Japanese Bitcoin exchanges announced Bitcoin Gold hard fork. And so we're talking about hard forks tonight, in particular Bitcoin Gold, but hopefully we can get some lessons or learn some lessons on how this is going to, turn out for the SegWit 2x hard fork as well. And we got here Bitflyer, which is I think the largest Japanese exchange, announced that they would offer it, and they're going to basically split the coins for them. But I don't think they're going to make it. I don't know if they're going to be trading off of it or not. So that's to be decided later. Most of these exchanges are willing to split your coins, but they're not. They haven't really said for sure whether they're going to make it a marketplace. So that's the first thing I've noticed. And then another one is CoinCheck. Also, let me see. I'll read the quote here from Bitcoin Flyer. If BTG Bitcoin Gold split is deemed by Bitflyer to be permanent and secure in regards to customer assets on November 1st, the tentative. So the hard fork is on October 25th, but you won't be able to do anything with your coins until November 1st. And so they'll do that for you, and says users will be credited at BTG, and purchase and sale of BTG will be made available on Bitflyer. So Bitflyer looks like they will offer a trading platform for Bitcoin Gold. Let's see CoinCheck here. Let's see what their quotes. We are planning to distribute Bitcoin Gold after we confirm its security and stability. We haven't determined the specific date and time. So they plan on it, but they don't have a time for it. Another one is BitPoint. I've never heard of this company. Let's see what their quote is. Regarding the withdrawal and deposit service and the buying and selling of the newly generated Bitcoin Gold, since the security design of the newly formed blockchain has not been sufficiently confirmed, its handling is undecided at this stage. So you know, I think the title is a little misleading, but it looks like BitPoint is out of the picture on that. And GMO coin, there are no plans to offer services such as buying and selling of Bitcoin gold. Looks like they'll be offered. It looks like they'll split them, but I don't think they'll be offering to trade them. And then I don't even know how to say this. Zarf has no plans to distribute. Companies that have no plans. I don't know if that's Fiasco or Fisco and BitBank. So there's 7 Japanese companies that just will not, or there's 7 Japanese companies that will announce their plans, or I guess 7 Japanese Bitcoin exchanges announced Bitcoin Gold fork plans. Not having a plan, I guess, is announcing a plan. So what are your thoughts on this, Brian? Do you have any at all, or have you had a chance to look this over?
Yeah, I have. Well, this goes back to what Hiroja was saying, that can't ignore the Bitcoin Gold fork if they want, if they don't care about the Bitcoin Gold, like what I was saying. What she said was the problem therein lies with the businesses. Here you have 7 exchanges that have a lot of problems coming up. They're getting ready to deal with the Bitcoin, the real Bitcoin fork coming up, 2x. And now they've got this Bitcoin Gold fork thrown in here that they have to address and maybe do a lot more work behind, you know, because nobody knows how it's going to go yet exactly. Except maybe Konami, they've got their split set up, but no one is certain of how it's going to go down, so they don't want to offer it on their exchanges. They do have an obligation to give people their Bitcoin Gold. We saw what kind of heat Coinomi came under when they balked on the Bitcoin Cash. Obviously, nobody wants to see that happen to their company, so most of them are pretty much forced to hand over the Bitcoin Gold. But this is something they shouldn't have to deal with. They've got a bigger fork coming up, and it's a distraction at the very least.
How much of it do you think is like marketing? Because obviously a lot of people have Bitcoin, and if you're going to get a free airdrop, it could be a good way to get customers or new customers coming to your exchange if you're looking for volume.
Well, yeah, you could use that. I mean,
because there probably is an element of marketing with the developers of Bitcoin Gold. Obviously, they want this to be valuable, or they want as many people trading it, because they're, after all, they are pre-mining it, so they'll have a lot, and they want some liquidity, so they could obviously dump some coins. I think that's a given. That's what they're going to do.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's obviously what they're going to do. I'm sorry, James. What were you asking?
Oh, how much of this do you think is marketing? Because the developers must have a plan
Right.
to try to build some marketplace for this.
Well, if you throw out your fork out of the blue with no planning, then you are going to cause a splash. You are going to get a lot of news because everyone has to talk about what they're going to do with the Bitcoin Gold. So, in a way, it is a good marketing thing to some degree, because all of a sudden you're getting a ton of press. Everyone's writing about you. I don't know if they're going to be enticing a lot of people to buy Bitcoin Gold. First of all, there aren't going to be a lot of Bitcoin Gold exchanges out there. And If I'm not mistaken, a ton of exchanges are shutting down all trading around this hard fork. Is that correct?
Yeah, it seems like a lot of them are going to halt withdrawals and deposits of, could be mostly of any of all their currency, because if you deposit like Monero or Litecoin and then use that to buy Bitcoin during the time of the October 24th or at a certain block, and so they don't want people during that time to be coming in afterwards and claiming that they bought some Bitcoin. Where's my Bitcoin Gold? So they're going to actually freeze deposits and withdrawals, although some of them did state that they will allow trading. So each exchange was a little bit different in how they're handling that. So it's going to be interesting to see, and it's more or less is causing a disruption. In my opinion, it seems like more disruption than anything else. So let me go on to the next one here, and it's same article, Bitcoin.com. Let's see if it loads here. It's taking a long time. Okay, Bitcoin.com, but it's the Korean exchanges. So it looks like there's Korean exchanges, Asian markets, Bitcoin Gold is, I guess, founded by a Chinese mining company. It looks like the Asian markets are more open to at least splitting them for you. Some are actually even going to have plans of building a marketplace. So let's see the two exchanges that are going to, let me see, it's two South Korean Bitcoin exchanges announced hard fork plans. So this was, when was this dated? I think the other article was dated today. This one is 2 days ago. Coin1 is another one. Let me read their quote here. It says, Coin1 will do the best to support the creation of a new virtual currency, which is generated from a hard fork in the existing blockchain in the future, and to quickly support deposits and withdrawals. I would even say, if we look at the exchanges that are open to accepting this new hard fork of Bitcoin Gold, there's probably a good chance they'll also be open to SegWit 2x when it comes around as well. Here's another one. It's Coin Nest. Let me see what they've said to Bitcoin Gold. And I think it says there Thursday, they'll support both SegWit 2x and Bitcoin Gold. You see, we have complete and technical preparations for the hard fork for the first time among the domestic exchanges. So it looks like exchanges, as far as I'm concerned, they're probably willing, although it's probably a nuisance for some of them, they're probably willing to accept hard forks because it just brings more business, more trading, and potential more customers. Because whether people like Bitcoin Gold or don't like it, even for SegWit 2x that's going to be coming up, they want to do something with it. If they don't like it, they're going to dump it. If they do like it, they may actually buy more. What do you guys think? Did I lose any of you?
No, I'm still here. I think that I don't think Bitcoin Gold is bringing more people into Bitcoin. What I do think is that people who are already in Bitcoin, there are some who are hurrying to buy more so they can get more Bitcoin Gold for whatever reason. We're going to see that happen with 2x as well.
I agree with Brian. I don't think Bitcoin Gold is bringing anybody new. I think what it is you're going to just see traders trade and speculate with it, and it's not going to have any long-term substantial value in the long run. It's going to just have like a very instantaneous buy where people are going to switch their Bitcoin gold into Bitcoin or some other alt or something like that. It's just I guess, a free airdrop, if you will. But I just find it very fascinating that the Korean market, of all the marketplaces, seems to be more willing to take these risks on these different coins that might not necessarily have the same liquidity or same dev backing or community strength or anything like that to put on their exchanges and platforms and trade with. So I'm not surprised that it's Korea that you can exchange or trade Bitcoin Gold, or in the future Segway 2X. And I'd be interesting to see why that mindset is within the Korean marketplace and the Korean traders, why they're so open to trade these coins that have such significant risk. I don't know. Maybe there's an article out there and I just haven't found out about it, about that type of mindset.
Oh, I think they're gamblers. They're more speculators
More
than anything
speculators,
else.
I think.
Yeah, and they probably use these coins to for transferring money outside the country. I mean, they're into Ethereum. They're into Monero. They're into just any coin, and they're probably like a lot of cryptocurrency users in this space. They're they understand the Ponzi game. They understand the pyramid, and so there's probably a lot of multi-level marketing down in South Korea, and they understand how the game is played, so they play the game well, and they don't mind taking a chance on that. So, but also Japan is also open to a lot of Bitcoin Gold as well, and again, they're probably maybe a different mindset. I'm thinking is more. It could be more of a speculation than anything else, because their market is slow over there, their stock market, and they're low growth in that area. So, when you see like anything over maybe 20% over a year growth, that's fantastic for those for Japan. So seeing like 100% or 1,000% or 10x, it's worth risking a couple $100 to make a couple $1,000. That's what I'm thinking. So, all right, let me go on to the next one here. Let's see what's on the next one. I think next one's Bittrex, and the Bittrex announcement was probably the most revealing of all the announcements that I've seen, because they actually gave you links to the GitHub, and the reasoning why they're having the stance. Now they'll allow you, they'll offer these, or they'll credit you Bitcoin Gold. Let me see here. I'll read the first paragraph here. It's, if you have Bitcoin balance, BTC balance, on Bittrex during the BTG, Bitcoin Gold, snapshot block for 491, block 491407, occurring approximately on October 24th, 3 a.m. Pacific time, you will be additionally credited the equivalent amount of Bitcoin Gold, BTG, on a one-to-one basis, i.e., one Bitcoin on Bittrex held during the on-exchange snapshot will get you one Bitcoin, or one Bitcoin Gold. Bitcoin held on orders will also be credited. Only the Bitcoin held on your account is eligible for Bitcoin Gold. Full details below. So in the article, it points down, it gives you a couple links, like the code base. They're saying at this time it's not fully functional, and so they're not willing to commit to any trading of Bitcoin Gold on Bittrex. The other part is what I thought was interesting. Despite I hear conflicting reports when I go to the Bitcoin Gold website that there's replay protection, but clearly here it says implemented replay protection. So Bitcoin Gold does not currently have fully formed consensus code, which they discuss by looking at the code base. And the second thing is they have not implemented replay protection. And let me quickly get into that one here. Here is what they're talking about. And I'll go to the GitHub itself so you can all see here what they're talking about. Let me see here. Okay, I think this was the code that you could look over. So if you click on the code base, you could actually look over the code. Okay, and it actually says that there's a warning here if you take a look. So warning, Bitcoin Gold is a work in progress. If you don't understand what you are doing, please don't compile and run your own client from the staging tree. Your client will not work. However, you're more than welcome to help test the code and join the development team. So I think that's what they're talking about. The code base is not working. Let me see where the replay protection has not been implemented, because I've been hearing conflicting reports. Like there is replay protection, and then there's no replay protection. And I think there really is no replay protection, because this is coming from the GitHub directly from Bitcoin Gold, for Bitcoin Gold. So two-way replay protection must be provided on Bitcoin Gold. The solution must feature two-way SIG hash fork ID replay protection, clean and readable code, automated test, bounty 250 Bitcoin Gold, bonus 50 more Bitcoin Gold if the task is finished before October 25th. So they really literally put a bounty to get this done. There's nothing going on. As far as I know, the bounty is still up, and it was only committed here to the GitHub on the 20th. So literally only about 3 days ago.
Well, they only sorry.
Go ahead, Brian.
They only recently did the pre-mine, so they couldn't put out the ad offering the Bitcoin Gold before they had the pre-mine and had that to give to somebody.
That's a good point, because let's get back to the Bittrex article here, and so there's inadequate code for testing for auditing. Publicly known, they don't have publicly known code developers working on it. So that's the issues where they're not going to allow any trading on the platform. And then they also mentioned right here, the Bitcoin Gold code base also contains a private pre-mine of 8,000 blocks, which is 100,000 Bitcoin Gold. And if you go to that link, it takes you to it, and you can actually see it in the code. Let's see if it loads up here. Now, I don't read code, but I can actually see it clearly what they're talking about. So Bittrex was probably the most useful in it. Let me see here. It's right here. This line right here, and I'll read it. It says consensus.btg pre-mine window equals 8,000 lower pre-mining. So it's actually it's actually in there to have them pre-mine. So these are not rumors; these are actually confirmed. If you just go to the GitHub, they're right there. And so there's very revealing information with the Bittrex announcement on what they're going to do. And so they're going to freeze. Looks like they're going to freeze any deposits and withdrawals during that time of October 24th, 3 a.m. Pacific time, to take their snapshot, I'm assuming. And so they're going to do that, and then they will not offer their Bitcoin Gold until November 1st. And then even then, if you want some additional information, there's some information from the lead developer of Bitcoin Gold here. You can read about it, but I won't get into that right away. So What are your thoughts on that, Brian or Hiroja?
See, there needs to be like some kind of checklist of things you should do when launching a coin, whether it's a fork coin or just a token or something like that. Like known developers, a clean website that's like professionally done, not some like WordPress splash page. Wallets, both web, paper, mobile, like all these things should be up and running before you even launch, I think. I mean, you should go through like what other coins have done and all their mistakes and not make the same ones again. And it's all this just looks very amateurish. It just does. And the fact that no one's even just for shits and giggles collected that BTC gold bounty just shows you just how there is like no support for this. People just want to see for the fun of it if they're going to get some or not. I don't think people are really taking this very seriously. Now, when it comes to SegWit 2x time, I think people are going to take that seriously, but I don't think people are taking this seriously. And the fact that Bittrex had to take time out, develop a plan, take this snapshot, suspend trading, which is going to, cost their bottom line and everything. I'm sure it's very aggravating for these exchanges. And I don't know what that can be for the future for other coins that may have to, like Ethereum just did a hard fork, or when Bitcoin is going to have to do these upgrades, what that's going to do for the coin if exchanges are kind of going to get fatigued or tired by this. I don't know. It seemed very amateurish. It seems very like back of the like made on construction paper, really. Silly.
How about your thoughts, Brian?
Well, I'm sick and tired of all this, to be honest. If this is going to be cryptocurrency from now on, uh, it sucks.
Well, that's short and simple for Brian. It sucks. Yeah, but my feelings are like they're trying to do something. I understand what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to they're trying to do their own thing, but I think the way they're doing it, because if you just look at their GitHub, you can see right here. This is the Bitcoin Gold GitHub, their repo, I'm assuming, and you just go through it, which a lot of people have gone through. Ironically, I haven't gone through it, but it's just the way they were trying to market their coin told me like this is not going to be done very well. And then turns out as other people started looking into it, this bounty right here, two-way replay protection that they put up, they haven't even done a replay protection at all themselves, and they're putting a bounty up for Bitcoin Gold. They're using Bitcoin Gold for the bounty, and I guess you're right, Brian. They couldn't do it unless they, of course, they're. I don't know if they even started pre-mining, or maybe they have. But in either case, I don't know if anybody wants Bitcoin Gold. If they offered 250 Bitcoin, I'm sure this would get done by yesterday. And then if they put an extra 50 Bitcoin, which would be what, $350,000, if they put 50 Bitcoins on this, it would have been done like 2 days ago. But since they're offering only their pre-mined coins to offer the bounty, I don't know. And with literally almost a day and a half, 2 days until the hard fork, and they still have no replay protection. I guess we can confirm they have no replay protection at this point. It's really dangerous to even try to use Bitcoin Gold at this point in time. And then, of course, the confirmed. I even lost it. 84. Let me see. Where is the 8,000 pre-mine? Oh, I lost it. I lost my place in it. But even with the 8,000 pre-mine here, let me see. Where right here. Here it is. 8,000 pre-mine also confirmed. It does seem really, really, really shady. So we'll go on to the next thing here, and this is where we're going to talk about Bitcoin Cash a little bit, because actually no, we're going to talk about Coinomi support. So I know, Brian, you seem like a little tired of this, but the good news is I found a wallet, and I can confirm it. This was updated today. So Coinomi will actually allow you to split your own Bitcoin Gold, so you don't have to take it on the exchange, because the problem with the exchanges is that they'll take it, but you won't be able to withdraw it until November. So you have October 5th, or October 24th to get it in to the exchanges for them to take a snapshot, and then you got to purchase your Bitcoin. So whatever you have, whatever, like if you have Monero, whatever altcoin you have, or actual Bitcoin, or even money, if you have any cash or tethers or whatever, to get it on the exchanges, then you have to actually buy Bitcoin and then wait for them to take a snapshot. And then you have to wait until November 5th if they even allow you to withdraw anything. So there's about 5 to 6 days where you won't do anything. You'll be able to trade on the exchange, but you won't have access to your coins. And then, of course, that leaves a huge, huge risk of the exchanges possibly getting hacked or their coin seized for whatever reason. So it's a little dangerous. But Coinomi just released today what they're going to do, and it's very similar to how Bitcoin Cash was done. Just if you want to do it the easy way and you don't want to deal with, splitting from a paper wallet, because my experience with Bitcoin Cash was I didn't have any Bitcoin on Coinomi, but I think you did, Brian, and it seemed like an easy process. My process was a little bit harder using a paper wallet after the hard fork. So here it states the same way that was done with Bitcoin Cash. Just have all your coins on Coinomi wallet, if that's the way you choose to do it. And you simply, here, let me read the directions. Go to add coins, select Bitcoin Gold from the mind-blowing list of Coinomi's 86 supported coins and 214 tokens. And then there will be a pop-up dialog will appear asking if Bitcoin Gold should be added. Hit the advanced settings. Hit the advanced setting buttons. If you click add, you have to start over. You have to delete, but hit the advanced setting buttons, and then under the deviation path, where it says m/44h/0h/0h, you have to change that to, let me see, please. Okay, in the deviation path, enter this as a deviation path, and then you press enter, or you push add, and voila, it will split your Bitcoin from your Bitcoin Gold. So it's very similar to the way Bitcoin Gold was. And Brian, maybe you could tell us how easy that was for you, and if you still have your Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah, it was extremely, extremely easy. I suppose anyone who's looking to get Bitcoin Gold should use Coinomi, because it was so easy to get my Bitcoin Cash. And I still have every single Satoshi of Bitcoin Cash that I got from the split. Obviously, it's worth a lot less now than it was, but I'm just holding on to them.
Yeah, this time I have like I took some of my treasure hunt wallet from my paper wallet and moved it to Coinomi, At the time, I was doing it in preparation of SegWit 2x hard fork. But since Bitcoin Gold has come up, it'll give me a chance to also do that, and I'll probably make a video. And I suspect it'll be real easy. Now, as far as pulling from a paper wallet, my issue with Coinomi was when Bitcoin Cash forked off was that it was a little bit difficult. Matter of fact, I was unable to do it. I had to use Bcash wallet. I think it was called Bcash, Electrum Bcash or Electron. I think it was a fork of Electrum wallet. It was called Electron Cash wallet, and so I had to import my private keys that way to get to split Bcash. I might do it both ways to see how it goes. So once Coinomi does allows you to split your Bitcoin Gold, I'll obviously have a Bitcoin Gold address. I'll try one of my wallets that I have, like a small amount, $5 worth or something, and see if it double spends. I'll send it to myself, so I'm not going to be worried. So it'll go to my Bitcoin address as well as my BGold address by the time I have the split wallet on Coinomi, and see if there's any issues right now or at the time. How about you, Hiroja? Do you have any plans of splitting your coins at all?
No, I'm just gonna let them sit in a paper wallet and see how things shake out. I still have Bitcoin Cash. I did put some Bitcoin Cash on yours, that service, just to experiment with it and its spending and do things on that platform. But I'm just gonna hold on to it. I'm gonna see how things go and see what time tells, because while I was initially excited by the concept of Bitcoin Gold, GPU mining and things of that nature, the fact that the way they're implementing and how it seems to be just really shitty, I don't trust it. I don't trust putting my private keys into something and seeing if I get something out in return. I mean, I waited a while before I went and saw if I had any Bitcoin Cash. I mean, I think I waited almost like a month and a half, really, before after everyone else did, and see which things shook out. So yeah, I'm just gonna hold. I mean, as long as I have those bitcoins, they're not going anywhere. They're not gonna move, allegedly, at least. We'll see. I mean, do they even have miners? I mean,
They probably have. They're probably mining themselves. I mean, the guy who came up with Bitcoin Gold is a mining manufacturer, and so I think they even mine. They manufacture GPU miners,
so
and I
do they
think
even
that's
have they
his
released
market.
the code, the mining code for
No, they
like
haven't released. I don't think
the
they've
like
released anything. Like that's
Windows?
the whole thing.
Yeah,
That's why the exchanges are like, we don't know what to do.
yeah.
The
I was
wallets are
just
like, we
thinking of
don't know
that
what
as
to
we were
do
talking
either.
about this. Like, have they released like for Windows and Linux implementations and Mac implementations and different GPU drivers? It just, yeah,
If they have, they're keeping it a secret because they
I
probably want to
guess.
mine it first,
Hmm.
themselves on the pre-mine, and then after
Yeah.
they get enough coins, and I
Look,
think that's why they're waiting till November.
I I don't mind pre-mining if you disclose, hey, we are pre-mining X amount of coins prior to the launch because we need to pay ourselves and pay the devs, and that's how we're paying for everything. As long as that's disclosed right up front, and so I can choose whether or not I want to participate in a coin that's pre-mined up to an X a point. But when you don't disclose it and you find out afterwards and you invest, either time or resources into something, it comes out very shady. That's why some people still have a problem with Dash. Um, I can't think of the other really bad pre-mine coins, and then there's a few that people don't have a problem with because it was disclosed up front, so people knew what they were getting into. It just All of this just feels very, very scuzzy, and I don't know if it's a distraction. I don't know who's financing it really, besides this alleged GPU miner manufacturer, but It's not very professional. It's not well done. If it was extremely well done, if it was like above board, X's and O's and I's and T's were all crossed, then I would be more inclined to say, okay, go for it. You know, do it at your own risk, but go ahead. I wouldn't hesitate to recommend to somebody, to look into Bitcoin Gold. But at this point, in this almost like, what is it, 4 days, 5 days?
Literally a day and a half now.
Is it day and a half? What day
Like
is
today,
this?
right now under my clock, it's the 23rd.
Oh, it's the
So
22nd.
actually, no,
Yeah.
2
Okay.
days. But yeah, in 2 days. But really, I think if you're going to use the exchanges, they're going to take a snapshot.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you use Bittrex, they're going to, it's the 24th
Mm-hmm.
at 3 a.m. on the 24th, so Pacific Standard Time. That's
Mm-hmm.
when they're taking their snapshot of who has, how many Bitcoins in their account, and then they'll credit them on November 1st. So each exchange may do it whenever they take their snapshot, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a specific block number. Let me see what block number. 491407. So block number 491 407. That's the block number in which it's going to be a
See,
snapshot
this
anyway.
is such a sloppy implementation of this type of a fork, if you will, that all this effort by these custodial places to do, right? I mean, Konami chose to add this as a wallet option. They didn't have to because they don't control people's private keys. But what are we going to do with Segwit 2x? And I still think it's going to happen when that fork happens. All that time and effort that people are going to have to put into that. It for something this sloppy, all the resources and the standstill that's going to happen. I mean, it's going to be like a clusterfuck for Segwit 2x, especially if there's no replay protection on either end. I don't know. It's how many days do we have? We have 2 weeks. It's like November 17th.
For Segwit 2x, yeah, about about that time. It's like November 18th, yeah. So
Yeah.
right after this is over, and you get your Bitcoin Gold tokens on November 1st, then right there you have 2 weeks to get ready for the Segwit 2x. I think Bitcoin Gold is like a prelude to Segwit 2x because it almost has the same characteristics, although it's not quite the same. I understand that, but you can kind of get an understanding like how much effort it takes to do a hard fork, or when you're forking, or hard fork when you have a split, a contentious split, whether it's friendly or not. It takes a lot of effort,
It
and
does take a lot of effort, but this is like a last minute effort. And now we have like something that's supposed to be allegedly people have been planning for the last, what is it? August was when Segwit was activated. So August, September, October, November. So people have had almost like 3 months to implement whatever their plan is for their wallets and upgrades and all that. If this is what it takes for a sloppy implementation, how confident are we with these exchanges with the planned forking or these wallets?
it
To
has
be
the same
perfectly
characteristics
honest.
though.
Yeah, it
It
does
has the
in a
same
sense.
characteristics because you got no replay protection. You have different exchanges taking different stances, like,
Uh-huh.
and they're not doing it for political reasons. They're just doing it for technical reasons.
Yeah.
Like some will take on and allow trading and put a
Yeah.
marketplace into it, whether
Yeah.
they're getting paid by Bitcoin Gold or not. Some will not because they don't feel comfortable with
Well,
it.
as far as marketplaces, people have the right to choose what products they can and cannot have in their marketplace. I mean, Pepsi can't force a convenience store to sell their Pepsi cans. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. So if an exchange chooses not to utilize Segwit 2x or whatever, that's your choice, or even Bitcoin Gold, that's your choice. The issue comes down to really is how much we allow these third parties to control our private keys. This custodialship that we allowed, this extra layer of confuckery, if you will. And I think, with atomic swaps coming into line and more efforts into these decentralized exchanges, we'll probably see less of that. And people will have that individual choice to say, okay, I'm going to take my private key and I'm going to try to see, what Bitcoin Gold or Segwit 2x, or whatever next fork comes down the line. I'm going to choose to do something with that and choose with my funds, because it's all about sovereign wealth, right? We have control of what we're supposed to do with our wealth. And I think a lot of people have conceded a little too much control in this space for convenience. And I understand it. It's something that people are comfortable with. Something that people are used to. We're implementing old existing economic frameworks into this new system that just, you know, did well for the short term, but for the long term does not fit in the system. It just doesn't do that. And these forkings are an example of that. How these exchanges don't really fundamentally fit in this new kind of economic system, or at least as they're constructed, the current exchanges.
Right. Uh, the the other thing is, there's not enough material out there,
Mm-hmm.
either video or articles, that get really technical on this, on how to handle your private keys,
No,
and
you don't need to
also,
be technical. I think people make the mistake of making it technical. I think they need to make it like explaining how you make a peanut butter sandwich.
okay, well, how about instructional? There's not enough instructional
There's not
material
enough
out there.
instructional videos. There
Yeah,
used to be very early on in the space when I first started. There used to be very early on in the space. There was a few instructional videos, a lot of blog posts, like a lot of reading. I think we need to get back and drill back down, because there's so many noobs in this space of doing a lot of more. Maybe I'll do one like 101, how to have control of your private keys. Why is it important to have a say in that?
yeah, yeah, I think so too. I think a lot of it gets drowned out
Mm-hmm.
by the marketing material, like
Yeah,
marketing
it's
hardware wallets,
no,
marketing
that's.
exchanges, marketing like how to make money, marketing on
I
Ponzi
think it's a
schemes.
trading aspect where people say you can make money, 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 and it sounds so similar to the early '90s with some of the when they were starting doing like the bot trading. On the when they started opening that up, and the different types of derivative markets that eventually caused the crash that we all went through in 2008. I think what you have is you have three different groups of people. You have people that understand the market. They understand the pyramid scheme, as you were talking about the Korean Japanese market. They understand that, so they know how to trade and willing to make the risks. Then you have people that that were too young during the different collapses, whether it be the dot-com burst or the 2008. So they didn't really feel the economic sting. So they have no, like when you're a kid and you try to go to the stove and you get curious and you want to touch it, and your mom or your dad tells you no, 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 and then finally they just let you touch it, because you have to know, you have to learn that that's hot and not to touch it. There's a reason they're saying that. And I think people haven't been burnt yet. So you have a lot of inexperienced people that think that by watching like a YouTube video and putting a program in and having a little bit of money, all of a sudden they know how to trade, and they're going to get burned. And then you have another group of people that they want to be the 1%. They want to build up their capital and be the elite and control the marketplace and be the whales and ones making the decisions and run the marketplace. And they think that they can eventually do that because they got in very early and they know what's going on, and they're very smart and they are patient, and they think they can build themselves to be I don't know, the next Rockefeller or something like that, and run the game. And all these three components are very dangerous, and so it drowns out anyone that wants to have an understanding of this space, that all they're seeing is trading and marketing and return on investments and blah blah blah, and you can make all this money in 10x, and they're getting suckered in, and it's just very sad personally.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's one of the reasons why there's such a reliance on exchanges,
Mm-hmm.
hardware manufacturers,
Mm-hmm.
and to some degree, you know, um, wallet wallet providers as well,
Well, look what
or
happened with
software providers.
Coinbase. Look what happened with Coinbase. Coinbase let people do instant buys finally, right? But they didn't go around and make assurances with the various banking, particularly in the States, that, hey, Bank of America, we have X amount of customers that are Bank of America customers, and they're going to use our Bitcoin exchange to purchase or instant buy through our wallet. Is this going to be a problem? So that way their customers know, hey, Bank of America, Chase, and I don't know, pick another bank out there, say, no, you can't do this with it. But all our other customers with these credited banks, if you have an account, you can do this instant buy. And there's people getting right now, getting their accounts shut down. And they didn't know this. They didn't know about the fact that there's a lot of banks that shut down people's bank accounts because they deal with cryptocurrency, even though it is, to some extent, regulated. It's legitimate. It's not an illegal activity. But
Yeah,
they still shut people's accounts. Yeah.
it's something that this community doesn't talk about with
Mm-hmm.
new people, because
Mm-mm.
if you told new people this, like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
if you buy Bitcoin, there's probably a good chance that you're going to be locked out of having a banking account.
Yeah. Right. I just
People
saw a
won't buy
video. Yeah.
Bitcoin, right? They'll be like running away.
No,
So
that,
you
that,
get
that,
suckered in a way because you see the price going up, you see it on the news. People say, hey, I'm a crypto billionaire because I bought in Bitcoin. What they don't tell you is that, well, I bought Bitcoin and then, I was using it. I might have gotten it with Coinbase, or maybe I
mm-hmm.
just bought it from a person, and then there was a service that allowed me to cash out,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden my bank account, my bank closed my account on me. Now everywhere I go, every time I open a bank account, I can't open an account, or either I can't open an account because I tell them I invested in Bitcoin, or I open an account and eventually they close my account because somehow they find out that I trade Bitcoin, or some of the money that I put into the bank came from the proceeds of Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's that side that people never talk about, but we tend
And we
to
should talk
tout,
about it. We need to talk about it. We need to get back to the one-on-ones. There used to be a lot of one-on-one talk. And lately, I guess with the price run up, we've distanced ourselves from the one-on-one talk. And maybe because of the contentious nature of the debate about scaling, maybe we got lost about the fundamentals. It's kind of like that championship team that wins 1 year after the back to back, but is struggling to get that the fifth championship ring, and a lot of it has to do with hubris and arrogance and just not doing the fundamentals, and then they end up losing. And I think we really need to get back to the fundamentals of explaining to people why it's important to have your private keys, why it's important to have sit down with your bank manager and find out whether or not your bank will allow you to trade with cryptocurrency if you deposit money or if you cash out. Have that conversation, maybe separate out and have a different bank account for the sole purpose of cryptocurrency. So that way, when your wife or spouse or whomever, you go and you swipe your card trying to get groceries and you find out you have no funds or your funds are frozen, you don't have that embarrassment. You don't have to worry about not paying the rent or something like that. A lot of fundamentals are not being discussed and talked about, and we kind of just need to really get back to that because it's important when, especially with this amount of money on the line for a lot of people, where people are legitimately actually, putting their life savings, whether they should or shouldn't do. We kind of need to have these kind of conversations, or we're going to end up with a lot of angry, clamoring voices seeking out regulation when it's far too early for that, for this space. And we're not going to get the regulation that we actually need or want or have a say
Agreed.
in.
Agreed. And the last point I wanted to make was, maybe that's one of the reasons why the price is going up, because you can't cash out. In Bitcoin, you're a bag holder in Bitcoin is not called a bag holder because you're a Bitcoiner. You're called a hodler.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe the fact that the price is going up is not because people are buying in, but they're finding out that you can't cash out. so that
All
may
right.
be a
True.
reason why we see a price spike here. Everyone's buying in, but when they buy in, they realize they can't cash out. Now we're
Can't
all
cash out,
hodlers.
or I'm willing to spend it on something, because they want the future return. Which I am going to do a video because I guess people are concerned about, spending their Bitcoin. And I want to talk about, is okay to spend Bitcoin. You got to stop worrying about the future value of what you spent, or else it's just going to drive you crazy. I mean, I see it all the time with that $10,000 Bitcoin pizza. I mean, that 10,000 Bitcoin pizza, its value is not its economic value of Bitcoin. Its value is the fact that it happened. And because it happened, you have this space. Because up to that point, I think it was like small things. Like I think someone did like some socks. Okay. I think it was even before really Silk Road took off,
Right.
that pizza buy. So you didn't have the drug aspect of it. And you didn't have like, I don't even think the porn aspect of it, which is still part of this space. I don't think people realize, you know, wherever porn goes, that has value. It's why you have Blu-ray DVDs instead of HD DVDs. It's why you have DVDs, period, or VHSs, or be able to record at home. It's because of porn. You can thank porn for that, or even cable to some extent. But I think people forget that because you know, one, pizza is like the number one food in the world, is a comfort food, is something that people have value. It struck a lot of light bulbs in people's heads, like, oh, this actually has some value. This actually, the thing I am doing, this hobby, this idea, this experiment, really can actually work. It has matter or value in the real world. And that is what is the true value of that pizza buy, is not the eventual probable economic value of whatever that Bitcoin be, whether Bitcoins are $1 million from now or whatever. It's the fact that someone actually was willing to make that trade. And I think that kind of gets lost in the sauce when people are chasing this very short-term, price-conscious value of Bitcoin.
All right, excellent. And the last thing here we'll talk about is, of course, this is all fork related, because this is James Bond hashtag forking. It's happening. Bitcoin Cash is set to hard fork on November 13th. It's kind of coincidence, you know, we got on October 25th, and then you eventually get your Bitcoin Gold if you use the exchanges on November 1st, and now we have Bitcoin Cash going to hard fork again. And this is for different reasons, not because there's any dispute over the block size. Looks like here, let me read the highlighted area. Come November 13th, 2017, Bitcoin Cash will hard fork to make a few performance adjustments to the BCC, which is not correct. It should be BCH protocol or Bitcoin Cash protocol. BitPrime's Juan, I don't even know how to say his last name, Garavigala, has announced that in preparation for the coming hard fork, he is running tests on different adjustment algorithms for mining difficulty. So Bitcoin Cash has had mining, what they call, in this article, they call it difficulty adjustment algorithm. I've also have it, I thought it was called emergent difficulty adjustment. But basically, they had to tweak the difficulty, because when they forked off using Bitcoin's difficulty, which was high at the time. And so they came up with this algorithm that adjusted the difficulty in a shorter time frame, which is causing the problem right now of the seesaw difficulty, where you're getting blocks come rapidly, and then as it adjusts, then the blocks come every hour. And they're at the current time, they're actually a few thousand blocks ahead of Bitcoin, when they should actually be around the same block times. So another hard fork coming up. Do you all think this will lead to another splitting of Bitcoin Cash? And your overall thoughts? How about you, Brian?
Well, it's a good thing I didn't do anything with my Bitcoin Cash, in case now there's a Bitcoin Cash Classic and a Bitcoin Cash. I think that Coinomi is going to make it super easy. You're just going to have to add the coin, change the derivation path, and bam, you're done.
You know, what I'm learning from all this hard forking is that it's just like a lot of people have warned everybody about it. You just can't take which is now almost $100 billion blockchain, and just start to hard fork. It's not going to be that easy. There's going to be a lot of issues, and thank goodness that I guess that these people tried to hard fork, and now we're seeing the results of their problems. And I think it's a warning to everybody and anybody who's going to try to hard fork Bitcoin, with so much value in this, that there's pitfalls to hard forking. Now, I know that I'm going to bring up Ethereum. Ethereum had their hard fork recently, and it was celebrated. It seemed like it was like a success, and in reality, it wasn't. It turns out they only got 50% of the network to hard fork with them. The other 50% are still on the older version of the client, or some older version of whatever they use. And they're even, before that happened, I was hearing rumblings about Ethereum also hard forking and splitting. And so hard forking is, not that easy, and it's harder and harder to come up with consensus as the network, or the value of the network, gets larger and larger, because some people may not, it just takes a small fraction, a small percentage of the users, i.e. miners and nodes, and to some degree to the end users, the economic end users, to just not go along with the plan, and you got a split in the network. And so I wish the best for Bitcoin Cash, and who knows, the timing, although it's a little suspicious, but if I did read the article, and it actually has nothing to do with the SegWit 2x hard fork timing. It's just that they've been planning this, and this has been a nuisance for them, and they feel that they just have to do it as soon as possible. So when I was reading this, I was a little concerned that, like, oh my goodness, another hard fork in November, just before the SegWit 2x hard fork. Can things get more confusing? It'll probably confuse a lot of people, but it actually has nothing to do with the SegWit 2x hard fork. It was just a coincidence of time. How about your thoughts, Hiroja? You still there, Hiroja?
Sorry, I thought I unmuted myself.
No problem.
Yeah. I don't think this is going to be a very difficult hard fork for Bitcoin Cash, because they don't have that many nodes. They don't have that many wallet providers. So for them to upgrade is probably going to be very easy. The issue will be is, once they make this adjustment, will the mining power stay? Because the benefit for the miners was seesawing back and forth for them. But now that they have to secure and maintain a network, is it in their economic interest to do so? And what will that mean for Bitcoin Cash? Is the hashing power going to plummet? Is it going to rise? Is it going to stay? And it'll be interesting to see what happens after this fork, especially pretty close to the SegWit 2x fork, where the miners are probably more focused on that than this chain. I mean, how many hats do the miners have? I mean, I know there's some pools that do Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin this, and other coins. I mean, at some point I don't know, they're going to hit some kind of capacity limit, I think, about how many coins they're actually going to be mining and securing.
Well, the with GPU miners, they just mine any coin, any profitable coin at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, miners have different incentives, and it's always been game theory that this is what they would do, and they're actually doing it. They're just mining the most profitable coin at that time.
But you also have within that, like, the people that actually value the chain, that are like, Vertcoin's my chain, and so they're going to GPU mine no matter what. But that's a very small group. And what's going to happen with Bitcoin Cash when you have a very smaller group that are just the committed, that want to mine Bitcoin Cash, but you need those other miners that are incentivized, that are not going to be there. I mean, how are they going to secure this very large network that they fork off of? Is it going to collapse?
Well, we're experiencing that to some degree, and I guess altcoins have always experienced this. You know, whenever their value goes up,
Mm-hmm.
that's when they get the most amount of hashing power or mining
Mm-hmm.
coming to them, which ironically drives down their price because the
Mm-hmm.
miners end up just selling those altcoins for whatever coins that they want. They're just in it for the money, and then when
Mm-hmm.
it becomes the value becomes too low, then it's unprofitable. They jump onto the next one, and so
Mm-hmm.
we're kind of seeing that here, where depending on the difficulty, they'll jump to Bitcoin Cash, and then
Mm-hmm.
they jump back to Bitcoin, and then it all depends on Bitcoin Cash whether it becomes profitable or unprofitable compared to mining Bitcoin, because they're using the same algorithm here. And then as
Mm-hmm.
SegWit 2x happens, now you get a three-way. And my suspicion about Bitcoin Cash is it may be, since it does not have SegWit, there's been rumors or thoughts that you could still use ASIC boost, and so there might be some miners who may not be able to mine, Bitcoin, but they'll still be able to mine Bitcoin Cash with their mining rigs. They'll just turn on their ASIC boost supposedly, and so there's definitely advantages and disadvantages to mining different coins here, but it's just going to get really murky, and then we're going to see different hashing rates jump up and down all over the place, and this kind of slows down the current network, which I think we're seeing now because we're seeing like higher mempool now. Whether that means there's more transactions, but I've also seen the rate in the transactions change to 3 per second down to like 1.5 per second. So if they do change it to something more even, Bitcoin Cash, hopefully the seesawing can stop. And again, it's another lesson that we can all learn, which is when you hard fork, you have to create this difficulty adjustment, because you're hard forking from a network that has a very high difficulty into a network that has very, very low mining power. You might have to hard fork again. So when you hard fork just to fork off, and then later on you may have to hard fork one more time to adjust difficulty. So you have to hard fork again. So there may be like possibility of 1, 2, 3. You got 3 possible splits, or 3 possibility of splits happening, which lead to more more altcoins apparently. So let me see here. What is our last thing? Let me see what we got here. And let's take a look in the chat here real quick. I'd like to thank everybody in the chat. Spencer Hansen, Seagrin C in the chat, as well as it's me, Boss Lady's been in the chat, and Dual Overhead Camness. Thank you for participating in the chat. I guess that's it. I guess we can do some open discussion on your overall thoughts. When I see the SegWit 2x happening, which it seems like it's going to be happening, because there's no indication that it won't, because there's a committed group and committed miners who want a different chain with different developers. And so that leads me to our final question, or my final scenario, which I think if SegWit does happen, you're going to get a split in the mining power, which causes a freeze in one of the chains, because the difficulty will remain the same, but the hashing power will either stay on one or the other, or migrate to the other chain. And since SegWit 2x does not have replay protection, it's literally, in my opinion, designed to kill the other chain. And so does that mean if Bitcoin, our current like BT1, I'll call it BT1 chain, just for reference purposes, will that lead to a hard fork in the legacy chain to change the difficulty or even proof of work? Anybody want to chime in on that?
If the legacy chain were to change it from proof of work to proof of stake, I think that would be the end of Bitcoin. I honestly
Okay,
do.
or even change a different proof of work, a proof
Would
of
that
work
proof of
change.
would the proof of work change require the lowering of the block size as was being discussed to so it'd be GPU mining? I mean, what is the change?
Well, because if they do split,
Mm-hmm.
if SegWit does split and the majority of the miners move over to the SegWit 2x, that
Mm-hmm.
would literally freeze the legacy chain and it would die, or it'd be very, very slow. So they would have to hard fork the difficulty. But that just changing the difficulty, hard forking to change the difficulty doesn't resolve the problem, because that if the miners that left
Mm-hmm.
the chain wanted to attack, they could just go back to mining the legacy chain, BT1 chain, and
Mm-hmm.
raising the difficulty back up, and then moving back to the BT2 chain or SegWit 2x chain, and then
Mm-hmm.
again it would freeze the legacy chain. It would, like, literally, it's this coming split is designed to kill
But
one side
but
of the chain.
I know like
They would
very
have to
early,
change the proof of work
yeah.
in order to stop the attack.
But I know early on, like when there was the possibility of one of the mining pools having 51% attack, and then people switched, but also people put, even though it didn't last very long, they put like their old mining rigs up. Would that be something that people would have to do if they wanted to secure the old legacy chain? Is fire up their old mining rigs, their CPUs, GPUs, and try to
I
mine?
don't. Well,
Would that even work in
I don't
this
think
case
it
of
would,
scenario?
because if both chains share the mining algorithm,
Mm-hmm.
that means they could switch back and forth, and seeing how, you know, the there's a large mining manufacturer that's producing these mining rigs that has a tremendous advantage, and these mining rigs are way powerful than any mining rigs you had a year or 3 years ago. um, one of the chains will have to hard fork to first change the difficulty, or even do a proof of work change. So they would have to do essentially both to prevent from constantly being attacked. Or I would call it an attack. Really, it's not an attack. It's just that if miners really are going to mine the most, for profit, they would continuously uh, jump around, like you've seen with Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin, where you see the mining algorithm of Bitcoin Cash, the difficulty adjusting, it's same algorithm, but different difficulty adjustment. They're just moving back and forth to the point where it's causing problems. That's why their Bitcoin Cash has to change their difficulty adjustment so it's a little bit more smoother. Or they'll get inflation. They'll get a block increase. They'll be inflating their block numbers faster than what's supposed to be. Um, but in the case of SegWit 2x, what I foresee is that majority of the miners are gonna. I think it's safe to say that at least 80 to 70% of the miners, or the hashing power, will move to one or the other chain. Will either stay on this chain or move to the other one. We don't know for sure, but I think it's safe to say, based on the New York agreement, that at least 70% will move over to the SegWit 2x chain, and that leaves the current chain of Bitcoin vulnerable, because you won't be able to mine a block as fast as you can, and the longer it goes on, the worse it gets, especially if people are trying to transact. So to it would basically give it a heart attack, in my opinion. And so they would have to do two things in my mind in order to alleviate that, is to do a hard fork and maybe even implement replay protection on top of that. So there's a chance there might be a replay protection on one of the chains. And even if there wasn't a replay protection, they would still have to hard fork to change the difficulty and prevent this from happening again, because if they hard forked and didn't change the proof of work, the miners on the other side that jumped over can just simply go back to mining and raising the difficulty again until it became unprofitable, quote unquote unprofitable, and then move back, back and forth. And so it would cause a slowdown probably on both chains, which I doubt, because most of the miners or most of the hashing power has signed on to move. But you could see an attack happening in that way, where they'll just keep mining and then you're back to a high difficulty. So you would have to either continuously hard fork, or you have to just hard fork and do a proof of work change. And that has been discussed, and so that leads to another hard fork. So there might be even, another fork here in this meme. Next time I do something like this, you'll have 5 forks or 6 forks. But how to fix that? That's the only way I can think of fixing it, is just a proof of work change eventually. Hard forking and doing a proof of work change.
So I've been following along, but I'm wondering, what is the actual hashing power to keep one of these chains just moving along and not freezing, even if it takes time? Like with Bitcoin Cash, there seemed to be, I guess, up to 12 hours, even days before another block was mined. I mean, could it be more than 30%? Could it be 40% hashing rate to keep the Bitcoin legacy going, if that is what the fork is, and even if people are moving on and off, just to keep
I guess
chugging along?
If you didn't want a hard fork,
Uh-huh.
I think you probably could keep it going. I think the block times would I think it's about 2 weeks. I think there's a 2-week period of which the block times, the difficulty adjusts. So you would have to wait 2 weeks, but during that time, you could literally have a built-up of all these transactions, and before the difficulty adjusts. And again, all someone has to do is just keep mining on the other chain, and then jump from one chain to another chain to maintain the difficulty, just enough to maintain difficulty. So, and then they will just jump right back, like you've seen with Bitcoin Cash, where people were jumping back and forth.
In the overall interest of the Bitcoin miners to mine both at the same time?
You could, but I don't think that's the plan here. I think the plan is really to kill one chain. It's literally to force the hand of each other to choose one chain. That's why SegWit 2x is very dangerous, and you might see a fork of BT1 actually. And if they're gonna do that, if that is the case, my assumption is that they'll change the difficulty. They'll do a proof of work change so they won't get attacked again, or they will prevent miners from mining on them to raise the difficulty. And then on top of that, they'll actually do a replay protection. So once they do a hard fork, if there's a possible chance of people splitting, like some hardcore, legacy chainers want to keep this chain going, but I can't imagine that happening, because they'll constantly get attacked. Now, instead of getting attacked by SegWit 2x or BT2x coin or B2X chain, they'll be attacked by the BT1 chain as well. Maybe we could call this the BTO chain, or I'm getting confused here. I mean, there's so many forks, I can't keep up. So there's still that possibility. I don't know, Brian, did you want to chime in on anything, or any closing thoughts? We're almost at the end of the show.
I would say that Bitcoin Gold is the garbage pail kid of the forks.
Okay, well, we all know Bitcoin Gold it's like Bitcoin garbage is, I think, what it should stand for, not Bitcoin Gold.
Ergo garbage pail kid.
Yeah, But even Garbage Pail Kids, the trading cards still have some value, although they've dramatically dropped.
Yeah, nostalgia is waned from them. But
Yeah.
those stickers were awesome.
True.
I remember getting in trouble for having Garbage Pail Kids cards because they were supposed to be, I don't know, Divian or something like that. Bad. It was weird. The images weren't that bad. They were actually cool cartoons, cool drawings, but yeah, Garbage Pail Kid of Bitcoin. I can't wait to see that meme.
Well, I might have to make one now that we talked about it on the day of, let me see, October 25th.
Yeah.
I'm not sure should I do it on the 25th or on the 31st, because 31st being Halloween.
Oh, do it on Halloween.
Do it on Halloween?
Yeah, by then it'll be a zombie coin.
You're right. I should make it like a garbage pail Bitcoin for Bitcoin Gold as a zombie or something, or So I mean, what are your final conclusions on let's go over each coin, okay? Let's go into the order of what I see the meme here. BT1 being the legacy chain. What are your thoughts, both of you, on how things are going to go beyond November? After all these forks that are going on, is it going to survive? Is it going to be stronger? How will it do? So for the legacy chain, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's going to be here, and I think people are going to try to stay on it. I'm hoping somehow there's a problem with SegWit, and their chain messes up, and no one has to worry about it anymore. I don't see that happening. I guess in reality, Bitcoin 1 could fade off into the sunset. That's a distinct possibility, right?
And at this point, anything's possible. We're playing a game of, I guess, Scroll Digger's cat. We won't know until it actually all happens. So
All right.
anything's possible. And then
Here's how it's going to shake down then. After all these forks, there are going to be issues that they did not foresee happening, the same way that Bitcoin Cash had issues. And they're going to have to try to do more forks and try to fix their issues. And Bitcoin is going to remain on top, and the legacy chain is going to be Bitcoin.
the legacy chain is going to be Bitcoin, or the surviving chain?
It's not mutually, they're the same thing. Bitcoin is going to survive.
So, okay. All right. Bitcoin's going to survive, whichever chain survives. All right.
No. Not whichever chain survives, Bitcoin survives. Bitcoin 1, according to your forks on the meme, Bitcoin 1 survives because of unforeseen issues with the other forks.
Okay. All right. Good enough. How about you, Hiroja?
I have no idea. Just simply because it seems both sides are very committed, almost to a fanatical point that they're, with no replay protection, they're willing to destroy each other to be right. So I honestly, it's a matter of who's going to blink first. If there is going to be a fork, then Bitcoin Legacy is going to survive. If there is a fork, then it's going to be a mad scramble to see whether or not Bitcoin's legacy is going to survive, but whether or not SegWit 2x is going to even maintain or retain any value. Because I think people are going to retreat back to Bitcoin legacy just simply because it's what they know. And they're going to be very upset and very uncomfortable with the lost value if, with the no replay protection, if funds get destroyed. If they start getting destroyed, if you will. If people start literally losing money in seconds. Like a market crash, if you will. Like a big one, like a Black Friday type of style thing. I think that's what's going to happen, is a Black Friday type of a style. And then we'll see who rises from the ashes, really. I have no idea. It comes down to who's the most committed.
Okay. What about your thoughts on Bitcoin Cash? I'll start with you, Hiroja. We'll just go down left to right on what your thoughts are.
Oh, Bitcoin Cash is going to be here. I mean, it's completely separate. It has separate dev team, separate architecture. It's going to be here for a while. It may not maintain its value that it has currently, but it's going to be here for a while. It's making itself to be is the coin that you can spend, and that appeals to people. Um, Whether or not it's going to have a significant market share competing against like Litecoin or any of the or Dash or whatever, it remains to be seen. But it's going to be here for a while. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be around. It was a sweetheart fork. It was the first fork we fell in love with, and
Mm-hmm.
she'll always have a special place in our hearts.
That's a good one, Brian. I guess I have to agree because they did have replay protection. They're actually just literally an altcoin, probably one of the most valuable altcoins out there. Just up on the top four right off the bat, and we'll see if they're able to be of any relevance. It seems like they have a lot of financial backing, and the purpose, or it seems like the purpose is like a they have no SegWit. They've increased the block size, just like the miners wanted. So in the chat, someone mentioned that. Let me see, how was it put? Bcash is the miner's coin. 2x is the corporate coin. Core is the or the Bitcoin right now, as we know it is the core developer's coin. And then B Gold wants to be the people's coin. That's very good. I like that. So SegWit 2x then. Um, any chance of this surviving or actually happening at this point in time in November?
We're going to see a mass bailout of the New York agreement. They're not going to have the hash power they thought. They're going to have implementation issues. They're going to have coding issues. They're going to have to do another hard fork right afterward. It's going to be horrible. People are going to laugh at them. They're going to lose value. Or I'm
Very
just
good.
wishfully thinking.
Well, a lot of people. No, you're not the only one saying that. There's a lot of like hardcore, you know, core developer supporters that are saying the same thing. That as we get closer, everybody and their mother is going to come out and bail out, and leave and denounce SegWit 2x and the New York agreement. But I actually don't see that quite happening because there's just a lot of egos, when it comes to CEOs and business leaders and captains of industry to turn back now, especially after all that they've said and all that they signed for. Signing documents seemed to be a big thing, which they did sign, and so bailing out of that would be a dishonor to their ego, and
They're
so
not
they'll
bailing.
probably do it. They're not bailing.
Our sweetheart was the fork that allowed for the increased block size. So therefore, New York agreement's been fulfilled.
I know you said that, Brian, but it really seems like there's people want SegWit 2x to happen for some reason, and to get to kill. I would say to kill the legacy chain. That's what SegWit seems to be really for, to kill the legacy chain so they can get the core developers out.
Well, that may be the motive, but whatever the motive is, it is war. This is planned for total elimination of their opponent.
Agreed.
Yeah, on that one, yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, there seems to be some fighting among the development teams, and again, I feel that the fighting is really not whether the development team has been competent or not. It's just been the way consensus has been performed, and I think that's the issue. Is I think the corporate community, the business community, and the miners, they want more involvement in the development of the protocol, and so that's kind of, I think, been the issue. And I don't know if I would agree with that, because you know, people will do things in their self-interest, and if they want, you know, to increase the amount of coins in circulation, or keep the block rewards going because you know, it serves the benefit, you know, serves the miners really well, or reduce the block times because it, you know, helps the businesses lower their transaction cost. You know, I don't necessarily agree that, you know, these other parties should have any influence on development, but at the same time, I can see I see the reason why the fork is happening. All these forks are happening. So you'll have the last word, Hiroja, on SegWit.
I kind of keep thinking of like the Matrix, like the architect, where he's talking to Neo and he's saying that, Neo saying that, if all the humans die, then the robots basically die, and the architect is saying like there's certain levels of survival or prepared to accept, and I think that's where core is at. That they're willing to accept a stalled out chain, or even a nascent chain, if it means that they will survive, because they believe so strongly in what they've designed. And then you have the Segwit 2X portion, if you will, that are on that kind of same level, where they're willing to take a hit, if you will, if it means at some point they're going to survive through this, and dust themselves off, and build themselves up bigger and better. It's just that a lot of people, I think, are going to get hurt by this process. I honestly do, because there's just too many people that are not fully understanding and aware of what's about to happen. So it remains to be seen. It remains to be seen who's going to blink and what's going to happen. But I guess we should mark our calendars, pop our popcorn, grab some beers, and watch the shit show in
Yeah, but
code.
the good news as an end user is you'll get a
Mm-hmm.
lot of free coins, and maybe you'll be able to, if you don't lose your original coins from no replay protection, but maybe you'll you know, be a little bit richer. I mean, that's the feeling I get with a lot of people who speculate, is that these are good. Look at all the coins, look at all the free money I get, you know, which I think is absolutely ridiculous, because there's no such thing as a free lunch or free money.
No,
But
but
on the
people,
left, okay,
but,
go ahead.
but people have a right to choose. Like this whole thing is a voluntary system, right? People do have a right to choose and move off and fork. It's just, well, I think the Segwit 2X part has been pretty responsible. I think the fact that neither the Core or Segwit 2X have implemented replay protections on their chain is very irresponsible. I think they both should do it, because they know they need to both protect their chains and protect their network and their end users and their developers and their miners and everyone utilizing their particular product. And the fact that both of them haven't done so, um, it's, I don't know. It's just, it's a little weird, and it'd be interesting to see if who releases the replay protection code first.
Well, there's only one out of like BT1 and BT2. There's only
Mm-hmm.
one of them need to do replay protection. They don't both need replay protection. So
I would, yeah, but I think they both should, because obviously neither one is going to. So if Segway 2X is not going to do it, then Bitcoin Core should begin protecting themselves.
yeah, that would require them to do a hard fork,
Will it
which
require them to do a hard fork for them to implement replay protection?
I
Is
think
that how
so.
that goes?
I think so. And that's what I was saying. Like,
Mm,
if they're going to or if they're going to be attacked in the way that I described,
Mm-hmm.
where the difficulty remains high and the hashing power has left, they won't be able to produce blocks. They'll have to hard fork. If they're going to hard fork, they're going to do three things essentially. They're going to reduce the difficulty so they could start mining blocks again. Probably have to change proof of work because they'll be attacked again, raising the difficulty. So they're going to do that, and then
Mm-hmm.
while they're doing that, they'll probably do a replay protection, and that's the worst case scenario for them.
Yeah.
And so,
Or the only third option is an option that no one's really been talking about, and I don't think we've raised, is the reordering, where the two chains merge.
I think they're setting it up where it doesn't do that.
It's not going to do that. Oh.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's not going to do
So
that.
it
I
is.
mean,
It,
I've
like it
heard
says.
possibilities that it might, but I really
Mhm.
doubt that they would do that to reorg, because I think SegWit 2x will
Mhm.
have one larger size, a
Mhm.
2x or 2 MB larger size, and I think that'll be the difference.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't reorganize back into one chain. I've
Mm-hmm.
also been reading that they're trying to come up with, both sides are trying to come up with a soft fork in which they can split, but they won't have to kill each other. So maybe mutual annihilation is highly incentivized where you can work together.
Have
So
a cooperative understanding. Hmm.
yeah, so hey, let's not kill each other. How about we just separate and just go our own ways? How about that?
Yeah,
But
that's what it is. It should be a clean separation where you go your separate own ways.
yeah, but they're
And
they're
that,
doing it in a
yeah.
way where they don't require replay protection. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the
Well, that's
thing.
if you
They're
want. Again, it's the whole the game theory thing. If you want to be the Bitcoin chain, then you wouldn't do that. I just.
right.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens on Black Friday.
Does it
I'm
have to
gonna.
be on a Friday?
No, I'm using that term,
All
but
right.
I'm thinking of the type of popcorn I want. It's been a while since I had some caramel popcorn. It is around the Christmas holidays, so maybe I can get one of those big Christmas buckets that has like the caramel and the cheese and the butter popcorn. I don't like cheese, so I can give that to the other people in the household. They'll eat that up, but we'll have like a caramel popcorn and some maybe vanilla and chocolate popcorn, and just watch what happens and see who blinks. Someone's gonna blink. There's too much money on the line. Somebody's gonna blink. I really do. I think someone's gonna get queasy in their stomach and back out. I wonder if it's gonna be Brian Armstrong of Coinbase. Now that
I don't
he's
know.
a
He's committed to. He's already written the support, or
yeah.
this company has written support and a blog saying they'll support both
Mhm.
chains.
Yeah.
So but then again, he is an exchange, and this is more money, more business
Mhm.
for him. So, but I think on Bitcoin Gold, I think we can all agree we're all agreeing that this is pretty much a scammy, low budget, B-rated movie that I'm gonna have to make a garbage pail meme on. So I think we all agreed on that. So, anyways, I think we're gonna end the show. And any final words or thoughts, Brian? I think you're still on mute, Brian.
Oh, yeah, I was. Um, Violence is not the answer. We don't want SegWit 2x to happen, but that doesn't mean you have to go and take out the people that signed the agreement, all right, folks? Let them live. They're not doing the right thing, but let them live.
Thank you, Brian. I would have said the opposite. I would said I would say the opposite of that, but I know you wouldn't agree with it. How about you? Final words and final thoughts, Hiroja?
I agree with Brian. Violence is the answer. Just let people, even if they're doing the wrong thing, go about their way. They've been warned, they've been told, they've been explained to, and if they're not unwilling to listen, then let them part. That's the whole purpose of the system, is that we're all here freely of our own choice. And how we go about it is of our own choosing. And if someone wants to pick up their ball and go a different way, then let them. Be the better economic system allows people to do that. Even if they completely fail and crash, allow them to do so of their own accord. And that will, people then will realize who the more valid economic system is one that people have actual active choice in, and no action and violence necessary to keep or maintain it. That's it. That's my final thoughts.
All right, very very well said. And here's my final word or final thoughts of the day for today's show is there can only be one coin, or there can only be one chain, and so having different implementations is I think inevitable, and having different chains. But eventually, the most successful chain, the chain that survives, will outlive all of them. And so may the best chain win, as we've all said before all this hard forking. Let the best chain win. And I don't know what chain that is, but me as an end user, I'll have all the coins. And there won't be a need to play it safe. Don't sell any of your coins. If you have 10 Bitcoins, you'll still have 10 Bitcoins. You don't have to try to sell the other coins to get 10 and a half Bitcoins or 13 Bitcoins or get 3 more Bitcoins. Just own your private keys, and you're the beneficiary of all these coins. So anyways, this concludes this episode. So feel free to like, dislike, leave a comment after the live stream. And I'd like to thank everybody in the chat. Please come back again and join us for another show. Oh, you know what? I forgot. I need to reveal the private key. So let me do that before I end the show here, if anybody's even listening here. Oh, what happened? All right. So, okay. Sorry for the long delay. All right. So that's the time lock address. I'm going to do a few transactions just to make sure it works. Oh, my computer is slow. All right, so there's the private key right here. There's the private key. So you have it. But I'm going to do a few transactions to make sure it works. I think I already have it set up. Okay, excellent. I'll go ahead and reload this. All right, so these are all the people I donate to. Some of it's actually going to the treasure hunt. Pot of gold. I already put it in. This is my raw transaction. Let me sign for it. I think I already signed it. And this is where you enter the private key. And I already signed for this. Let me copy it just in case. I'm not sure if I copied it or not. Broadcast it. Okay, I already tried it before the show. It was a fail. Let me try it after the show. Should be time. There it is. Transaction went through. So let me show you how to do it one more time. I always put in 2 donations with everybody. Let's refresh it. It's at a lower input, which is correct. I'll keep everything the same except for the last one. Let's figure that out. 0.006. Oh, it's going to be a 5 now. 5, or no, one more 0. 5, 9. Have to be an 8. 9 to give me a 3,000 transaction fee, 3,000 Satoshi transaction fee. Submit it. Should give me a slightly different raw transaction. Copy that. sign for it again with the private key. And this should give me a new signed transaction, which is gave me a new signed transaction. Take the signed transaction, broadcast it, should give me a new transaction ID. Excellent. New transaction ID. Hold on, let me submit it. Yep, new transaction ID. So everyone should be getting some donations. If you want a donation of 600 Satoshi, go ahead and leave your address, public address, in the notes section after the show. So, all right, thank you, everyone. Stay tuned for the next live stream. Bye now.